Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Chaucer's virtual author discussion with George Geary. My name is Michael Takeuchi. I'm the events coordinator at Chaucer's Books, a soon-to-be 48-year-old independent bookstore located in Santa Barbara, California. To purchase tonight's book, Made in California, or purchase other books or check out our events, please go to our website at chaucersbooks.com. Speaking of upcoming events, tomorrow we welcome online Lisa Hendrickson, the author of Burning the Breeze, 3 Generations of Women in the American West. And we're slowly starting to open up with live events. Last week we had Congressman Adam Schiff, and coming up on November 17th, we'll have the great Susan Orlean coming to visit our store to sign copies of her book on animals. Again, go to chaucersbooks.com for more details. While our guests and I are the only ones seen and heard on this webinar, please feel free to utilize the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. Tonight's event is being simulcasted on and recorded for our YouTube channel and will be available to view after program's completion. People on YouTube, please use the chat function if you have any questions, or email me at events@chaucersbooks.com. I'm going to push the little record button here. And there we go. So let's begin. Unbeknownst to me, when I scheduled this event last month, October 26th marked the 106th birthday of Tommy Kovacs, the founder of the iconic Los Angeles Original Tommy's world famous hamburgers. Yesterday also marked the anniversary of sorts for me when a baseball rolled through the wickets of Bill Buckner during the 1986 World Series, allowing the Mets to destroy the Red Sox in Game 6 in the World Series that year. I mentioned that game because after that particular game, my friend Dan and I were so upset we drove 200 miles round trip to drown ourselves in chili burgers from, you guessed it, Tommy's Hamburgers. So whether it's Tommy's, Dupar's, Foster Freeze, or in Santa Barbara's case, McDonald's or Sambo's, if you grew up in California, chances are you have a memory vivified by the smells and tastes that were definitively California. Thankfully, George Geary cared enough to recapture these treasures in his delicious book, Made in California, the California-born burger joints, diners, food, and restaurants that changed America. He gave us our memories before they disappear off into old age and whatnot. So we appreciate you, George. Why don't you come on out? Welcome.
There we
Hello.
go. How you doing?
Welcome.
Thank you.
If I may mention, George is the author of many hit books, including LA's Legendary Restaurants and The Cheesecake Bible. He is a cooking teacher, pastry chef, culinary travel guide, and in-demand public speaker. He's a California native and currently lives in the Los Angeles area. And you can learn more about him at georgegeary.com. So thank you very much, first of all, for preserving my childhood, George.
Thank you so much for having that childhood,
Well, we talk about comfort food, but I think what you created here in Made in California is a comfort book, because you can refer back to it at any time. And if you're feeling down, you go to this book and you automatically conjure up these great memories.
It's true. Yeah, you really do. And what my problem was when I was writing the book is when I would work on a chapter, like let's say Der Wiener Schnitzel, which turned into Wiener Schnitzel, I would start craving the hot dog, and so I go, okay, I guess I'll go have one for lunch today. So that's what happened, kind of like you with Tommy's Burgers, going all the way back down there to Hoover Street to pick up your Tommy's Burger. I'm lucky I have a Tommy's not far from me here. So
Good.
And
well, you
shorter than In and Out, so it's nice.
Oh, okay. So you're conveniently located then. You grew up in Los Angeles, didn't you?
Yeah, I was born in Santa Monica and I grew up in Torrance, went to high school in Torrance, went to LA Trade Tech for culinary, San Francisco for some of my culinary education, and worked at the movie studios. And uh, I live in Riverside County now. So
Okay,
yeah,
great.
still
You
around
know,
here.
you had mentioned in your book earlier about your father teaching you not to spill ice cream on your shirt. I really thought that was a really touching memory. And, if you could share the memories, a couple of memories that you had of your early days of growing up in Southern California and
Well,
encountering these places.
yeah, that memory, I remembered it and I put it in the book because my dad had just passed away when I was putting the book
Oh,
together. And my acknowledgement for all of my books is the very last thing I do. In fact, it is almost ready for the printer and then I do it. Even though I know beforehand, it's just every writer has like a little stupid little thing they do, and that's my stupid thing. My I had a new publisher on this book because I've had other publishers, and they understand that that's my last thing I do. But with this publisher, we need it and we need it. And I said, well, we aren't finished editing it. So when we're finished editing, I will give it to you. It's only one sentence and that's it. And so she understood after that. But yeah, Foster's Freeze. My dad was an accountant, and we lived in Torrance. And you go down Hawthorne Boulevard or up Hawthorne Boulevard to Inglewood, and that's where he had a lot of clients. And there was a Foster's Freeze, and there also was one about 2 miles down the road on the same street, and it looked like the same one
huh.
almost in Hawthorne. And that's where the Beach Boys supposedly wrote one of their songs from that location. And so I I was a kid that I didn't ask for things. When you see kids at the grocery store asking for candy and stuff, I just was
Yeah.
taught to just didn't do that. And so I never did it. So I'd go with my dad, I'd be like 8 years old in the summer on his runs, and he'd be
Hmm.
going to Inglewood, and I'd look at the place and I wouldn't ask. And I realized if I looked hard enough and he didn't stop, he'll stop at the next one. So that's what he did. I'd get it at least by Hawthorne. I'd get one. But we weren't a family that really went out to a lot of restaurants or burger joints or things like that.
Mhm.
My mom was a car hop when she was a young girl, and I dedicated a different book to her a while back, and I had a picture of her in her car hop outfit, and she was a little embarrassed, but uh, so, and I talk about car hops in this book because I found out a lot
Mm.
of information about them. They didn't get us a pay or anything, which
Mm.
they got their tips. That was it. So
Wow.
they really got nothing. And there were certain rules that they had to do. This is like the late 40s. They weren't allowed
Mhm.
to put the change in the guy. It was mostly men, and in their hand when they had to put it on the tray, but they had to smile and wink and say, "Thank you for coming, and make sure you ask for me next time." It was
Mhm.
like a little kind of like a flirtatious thing, but that was kind of how. And I asked my mom if she did that stuff. She says, "Not really," but she was one of the best car hops you ever met. Uh, she
she's not she's not going to admit that to her son, though, I don't think.
probably not, but Mama is pretty. She's something else. She's you know uh, she can remember every car hop place she worked. In fact, I was doing a thing on NPR one night, and she was listening, and she said, "You didn't mention I got fired from Dolores's." And I said, "I didn't know you got fired." She says, "Yeah, I thought I told you." She worked one night, and the chief of police from the city came in and looked at her and said, "Patty, you've got to leave. You can't work here." And she's like, "Well, why not? I just got the job." She was working two jobs at once.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
because she was underage and they served beer there. And she says,
Ah,
"We got to close the place down or you got to leave." So, but I didn't know.
oh,
My mom was, believe it or not, 14, 13 when she first started working.
wow.
Yeah.
So, with all this in mind, you're going to have a presentation here in a sec, but I wanted to ask, with all this happen with your family and everything, is this what inspired you to write this book, or what inspired you, I should
No, it
ask?
was very strange. This is my first book without any recipes. And what I did is I was working on a story for USA Today, and those top 10 stories all the time, top 10
Yeah,
places.
yeah.
And one was about Los Angeles food places and were they still around? Was the very first place still there? And I had been to the Wiener Schnitzel in Wilmington, California, and I didn't realize that was the very first one. In fact, it'll be in the slide presentation. And the building didn't look right, but it had a plaque, and I love plaques. Well, I go over to every year, and every building has a plaque over there, and it's great to see, what happened there, who did what. And with us, we tear the building down before we get a plaque up. So I started researching. I thought, I wonder how many. It was just a hobby, pretty much at that point. How many places are still around, and are the original buildings still there? Because years ago, I worked at a bakery, and we did there was a place called Hampton's Burbank. It was a hamburger joint, and I knew that that was the original location for IHOP. So I knew that building was still there over on Riverside Drive in Toluca Lake. So I just kind of was researching, and then I thought, how many places started in California? And I was working in Indiana, and you drive down the interstate or up the interstate, and there's a list, a mile before you get to the next off ramp. 172 is Purdue, and I'm getting off.
Okay.
And they've got like 30 places listed, and I'm going in my mind, I'm clicking. Out of 30, 28 were California born. This could be a book. So that's kind of how it started. So, I mean,
that's great.
We've got places back east that we don't have here, or they've started back. People will say, well, how about Olive Garden? They go, nope, that was Orlando, Florida. So Florida and California are the two, but we have a lot more.
Well, I had to make a quick comment. You could talk about Bob's Big Boy. There's like 279 in Japan and only about 70 so in California now. So
yeah,
I can see what you're saying in that.
Yeah, there's a couple like that I get into with the presentation on where were they and what happened to them. Yeah.
Okay, great. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead and take it away, and I'm going to enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show. All righty. So what I did with every chapter is I put the name of the header space, the name, what it was known for, what it is today, or what it became, the original location. And like this one, Sonora Cafe turned into El Cholo, which they opened in 1923. And I talk about the co-founders because I think they're important. What is it, that first location, if you go today? Is their original place or not? What is going on with the company right now? Currently, there's 6 El Cholo restaurants and 3 upscale restaurants make up the family portfolio. And it's privately owned by a family, and there's their website. It was on Broadway Place at the time, and or today it's called Broadway Place, but back then it was Modetta. So we did that for every one. The book only goes to 1965 because it's 60 locations, and I have another 60 I can do. So we don't know if we have a second book or not, but we hope we get one. So name change for the better, like that Sonora Cafe. Was that, let's say, yeah, Sonora Cafe is El Cholo better. So these are the ones that changed. And Vandy Camps, these are no longer around, but if you see on this side, that's what they look like originally. And you can tell in California where people were in their life age-wise by, if you talk about Vandy Camps, their bakeries, their restaurants, or if you talk about the little Vandy Camp lady at your grocery store, or maybe even the fish sticks, the frozen product. This one right here, the color picture, that one is one I found, and that's over by USC. That's still, it's a liquor store now, but you can see what's kind of left of it. And the large building on the bottom was their factory, and the LA Conservancy got that saved, and now it's the Vandy Camp Continuing Education School, which is kind of nice. If you're going to, instead of tear something down, we can repurpose. So Sonora Cafe, like I said, that turned into the El Cholo chain. And there's now, not all of the restaurants listed in the book left California. Some are still around California, but I felt some of these places were large enough to talk about. And Hinky Dinks in 1934, that's their original location. And what that turned into, which I don't, yeah, we've got new Trader Vic's. And this location was the Beverly Hills one that they closed down. And they put a new hotel on that spot. It's right there on Santa Monica and Santa Monica. Trying to think of the exact address, but it's by the Beverly Hilton. And I ate at Trader Vic's in Atlantic City. No, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. So it's still really good. And now with the tiki movement, I really wish it was still around. And the McDonald Brothers Barbecue, this is the only original type building I still have left. The original location is still there. It's got a partial building. It's in San Bernardino. And the McDonald brothers were fascinating. They came to California to work in the movie industry. And then they went and started, it wasn't working out for them. And it was two brothers. And then they went and started working, they purchased a theater in Glendora, California. And that didn't work out too well either. And they had all these usherette uniforms. And so they thought, let's open up a drive-in. So they had the usherette uniforms turned into car hops. And the car hop girls were a problem because they were flirting too much with the guys. And they were realizing that the guy would come in with a car. It was always guys with the cars. They'd come in and they'd stay there. And so they wouldn't serve that many people. So they closed the whole place down for about 6-8 months, revamped it, and it turned into a McDonald's where you had to get up out of your car and go to the window. This is the last original looking McDonald's like this. And that one's in Downey, California. And then we've got the Blimp. A lot of people don't know what that was, but that was Carl's Jr., and it turned into Carl's Jr. And they were out of Anaheim, California, but now Carl's Jr. and Hardee's joined together. Carl's bought Hardee's, and now their corporate headquarters are in Tennessee, I believe it is. Then we have Snowbird Ice Cream and Bert's Ice Cream. It was two brother-in-laws. They had separate ice cream companies. The one brother, he had a clothing store in Chicago, and he came out here, and they turned it into the largest ice cream company in the world, 3,000 plus locations, Baskin Robbins. The color picture is in Gardena, California, and it is still in operation. Excuse me. Hot dog on a stick was called Party Puffs before, and I don't have a picture of the original back when it was Party Puffs, but this is the original building. Supposedly they were going to enlarge the building recently, and it is right on Muscle Beach in Venice, Santa Monica area. So then our next one is the Snack Shop. And that building is kind of still there. It's been cut up a little bit, but this originally being called the Snack Shop today is what we have is Coco's, and there's still some left. They've been bought and sold, kind of like Marie Callender's. So then we have the Big Donut Drive-In. And there were a lot of these, and now everyone thinks of it as Randy's Donuts, which that's what we call it today. And Randy's Donuts over by the freeway. But what's great is Randy's Donuts, the current owner, a former lawyer, he has franchised the company out like crazy. So they even have them in Singapore now. And here's all the original Randy's Donuts, the Big Donut. Then we have Crinkles, I believe it was called. And then we have the Donut King #3. There were like 8 or 9 of them, and they were always on a street corner, but there's still a few of them left, about 5. Then the most famous Danny's Donuts. A lot of people have never heard of them, but they turned into Denny's. What happened in Lakewood, California is there was a lot of aerospace and things like that, and they started doing 24 hours. Well, there was another place called Danny's Coffee, and people thought it was the same company. So they decided before they started franchising and making a lot more locations, they would turn it into Denny's. They just changed one letter, and that's how that came up. And these are ones you thought were gone. There's a few in the book that are still around, but they had multi locations, like A&W Root Beer. A lot of people don't realize they're still around, and they started in Lodi, California. That plaque in the corner is in the cement at the very first location on, I think it's Main Street, of where the very first Mr. A and Mr. W are in that little black and white picture. And they sold root beer from a recipe from a chemist from Arizona they had gotten. And they started this whole A&W thing. And the A&W locations, there's still some around, not a whole lot. They're more on the East Coast. In the book, I even show you, I think it's the 4th generation family that have had one since the 30s. So, and a picture of them are in the book. Orange Julius is another one a lot of people think are gone. You see them at the malls. They started downtown Los Angeles, and he started, Mr. Julius himself, he started using oranges that were blemished from the Sunkist company. They would give it to cases of them for free or for really low cost. So that's why he started to do this drink. And he knew oranges and orange juice was good for you. So he had something down pretty good. The Dairy Queen Orange Julius company is owned by Warren Buffett. And he also owns See's Candy that we'll talk about later. But they're out of Minneapolis. Bob's Pantry, we kind of talked about Bob's Big Boy. The last oldest original-ish looking one is there by the old NBC studios, but by Warner Brothers. There's Bob's Pantry. They're originally the first one that did a double-decker burger. And so that was their claim to fame. A&W's claim to fame, which I think is very strange, but back in the day, the first person to put and sell it, bacon on a cheeseburger, was A&W. So that's what they're known for. So, and then Swenson's Ice Cream. This one, I love the story because so many people think they're all gone. They used to be in every single city, had a Swenson's. It was phenomenal. If you look at the color picture, that's the original location. It's still in operation. There's only 3 left, but there's hundreds of them in Asia. We only have 3 in America. We've got one in Texas, one in Florida, and then San Francisco original. When I was working on this book, one of the highlights was being able to speak to owners' kids and things like that. And so Patty Swenson is who I got to talk to, and her daughter got married, and you'll see their wedding picture in my book because instead of cutting cake, they had ice cream sundaes, which I thought was kind of cool. But the Swenson company, the reason why we only have 3 locations technically is they decided to change their whole focus. When Mr. Swenson started the company, if you look at that corner, he wanted every place to be a corner lot. It would be small. You didn't needed a lot of room because nobody would stay. You'd get a cone and you'd leave. 3 people in that store would make it look full. So when you drove by, you thought it was pretty full. And you'd have ice cream making equipment on the right-hand side or left-hand side of the door so people could see the ice cream. And that was something as a kid, you'd like your Cub Scout group or whatever, you'd go, and if they were making ice cream, they'd have a tub and they'd give you all a spoon and you got to eat the fresh ice cream. Well, when Swenson's Mr. Swenson sold the company a few years later, they decided to buy everything from one plant. And it was the same time Haagen-Dazs was starting, and Haagen-Dazs was better ice cream than the frozen product that people were buying at Swenson's. So they stopped, the franchisees started closing up or changing their name because they told them they won't be making ice cream in their stores anymore. So I thought that was a fascinating whole thing. Pioneer Chicken was one also that's gone, but there's only 2 locations left there in Los Angeles. In fact, that plate of chicken and coleslaw and everything, my editor wanted to know who did the food styling because it looked like it was done by a magazine. I said, I did it on my iPhone when I was sitting there because I had to eat the stuff after I wrote the story. So Pioneer Chicken has a fascinating story. House of Pies. We have one left in Southern California, but we have a lot of House of Pie buildings. You'll see it and you'll go, oh, that's a House of Pies, or it was. There's 3 in Houston that aren't really part of the company, but it was kind of like an offshoot. And we have a new one being built right now on the west side of Los Angeles. I noticed people have been talking about it. So House of Pies is maybe coming back. The Red Onion is a company that had a lot of locations. The first one, the black and white picture, that's in Inglewood, California. The Sun is running the only location left, and they call it the original Red Onion, and that's in Rolling Hills Estates, so that's over on the left-hand side. Red Onion had, I think, about 30 locations. They were getting in trouble with the ABC alcohol laws. They were more interested in serving drinks than food. And so they became nightclubs pretty much, and they were getting in trouble for picking and choosing who got to come into the clubs. So, but the original owner had nothing to do with it. He sold it off. These are still there. These are places that are still in their very original location or went back to it. Dupar's, that's at Farmer's Market. The black and white on top is A&W Root Beer, or Snowbird, and that is on Lake Street in, it doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like a regular 31 flavors, but that was Snowbird. Lowry's Prime Rib is right there in the dead center. In 1938, they moved back across the street to their original location. They were in the 50s across the street. Pink's, and if you haven't been to Pink's, Mr. Pink is one of the nicest guys. It's interesting when you're working on a book like this, you request pictures, clarification on dates and stories, and he picked up the phone himself and called me back and was really thrilled. And then after I sent him the book, he said, "You made our family look so great." And I thought, well, it is great. It's a great, and I didn't know that they had locations all over the country in mostly amusement parks. So, and then we have Foster's Freeze, that original beautiful sign. They've closed a lot of them because the locations are so nice that they could tear down the building, and hopefully they come back. Here's some more original locations. Tommy's Burgers in the dead center. Der Wiener Schnitzel in 1961, that's it right there. The kind of yellow roofed building, that's what it looks like, the very first one. Swenson's, like we did, right in the dead center. Hot Dog on a Stick with Mario Lopez. They were doing an event out there at the beach. Then the corner that looks like a Victorian, that's Pete's Coffee in Berkeley, and that was 1966. And Alfred Pete started it there, and you can still get coffee there. It's kind of like a little museum. It's kind of neat when you go there. Still there, kind of, with a building or a plaque. So this is what you'll find in these locations. A&W, like I said, this is right dead center in the cement. And A&W in Lodi, California, they do have an A&W that they claim to be the original, but it's not the original location. And if you go to Lodi, California, you're driving through there, go and stop at A&W. It was really funny. I think it was a Friday night, and I went in because they have a lot of memorabilia there. And I said, I'll take, because if you recall, they had Mama Burger, Papa Burger, and Baby Burger or something like that. So I said, I'll take a Papa Burger with a large root beer in a mug. And the guy said, oh, that's 2 hamburgers. I said, no, only one. He goes, no, 2 hamburgers. I said, no, only one. He said, well, it's buy one, get one free. And I said, well, I don't need 2 hamburgers, so just give me one. Well, what, you need to buy 2. So he was a high school kid that wanted to give me 2 hamburgers. So See's Candy. This is the only location and the only company in the book that does not sit with the California-born fast food restaurant or anything like that. I felt it's my book. I can put what I want in it, and my publisher went ahead with it. And what it is See's Candy will be 100 years this year. And they started in Los Angeles and on Western. And the original building is there in the black and white picture. And if you look down below, there's Tom and Tom Coffee. And The building was designated as historic, but there was never a plaque on it. So during COVID, I worked with the city and got this plaque put up because like I told you, I like plaques. And I worked with the CEO of See's Candy, and I must say, they sent me a lot of candy over the year. And he went to the location, the coffee place, right before COVID. And it was kind of funny because he walked in and he said, "I hear this used to be a See's Candy." And the girl goes, "What's that?" And another sales girl came up and said, "Oh, that's the candy with the old lady on the box." So he felt that he had some publicity to do at the first location. It's still there, but the coffee place just closed right after COVID. So the building's empty. And I was hoping that Pat, the CEO, would put another See's Candy company back in there, but he's not going to. But if you ever go to a grand opening of a See's Candy, they bring out the old motorcycle and you can sit on it and take pictures, which is kind of neat. So here's, like I said, McDonald's, the very first in 1948. If you go there, it's a museum, which is fascinating because it's a museum that McDonald's doesn't sponsor, but it's got every Happy Meal gift you ever saw and the original paper products and just everything there. So after the book was already at the printer, they finally called me and said, "Oh, we hear you're writing a book. Do you need any information?" I said, "Well, I've already finished." So, but they have everything there. And Del Taco, the original place. If you're going from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, you go through Yermo, California. And I laugh about this because that little hut that says tamales, pastrami, and all of that, if you see up above, the building says Original Del Taco up there. And I don't think they serve any food there. In fact, I think people are living in the back of that. It's very windy, but it's one little road. You get off the highway, you see a big gas station, you go through Yermo, and there it is, and you jump back on the freeway. Then you've been to the original, but Del Taco is a large chain. And then still there with a replica building. So Fatburger. Fatburger was downtown Los Angeles, and Lovey was her name that created it. And if you see the blue building, but the kind of cream color has a building behind it. She gave a lot of her, when she passed away, money to an organization, some hospitals, and then this is low-income housing, and everybody is eligible for it. And so they made a replica of the place, but it doesn't look like it, but there's a plaque there, but that's where that is. And the housing unit's called the Lovey Housing Unit or something like that. In-N-Out Burger, the freeway took the original out, and the original is in the black and white. And then if you go down the 10 freeway on one side, you'll see the In-N-Out, huge In-N-Out's place. And it's also has Burger University, and it's great to stop over there and get t-shirts. They have every t-shirt from every year there that you can buy in case there was a year you didn't get one. And the original replica, where my car is going through, you can go and stand in Thursdays and Fridays were afternoons. They open it up for pictures and stuff. So these are gone, but not from our memory. And these are all gone, except Sambo's, born right up there. And now it's called Chad's, but you all know about the history of Sambo's up there. It's a great pancakes. Love's Barbecue Pit's gone. Bandy Camps is gone. Copper Penny. Pup and Taco, if you look at that, there's a few Pup and Tacos were left, and most of them sold over to the Taco Bell company. And Pup and Taco, a fascinating company. They put all of their locations not on the exact corner of a intersection. They were one block off, because if you were stopped at the light, you would be backed up and you'd see it, and they didn't have to pay as much for the property. So most of them, the buildings are still there, and they're Taco Bell's smaller. And these are the iconic buildings, a few of those, which are, we've got In-N-Out, their iconic double drive. Chris and Pitts, Jack in the Box. I really wish they would go back to that square box and the whole look of those. Then we've got Randy's Donuts and the McDonald's iconic, and then their hat. Then Taco Bell. Taco Bell number 1 is tarped and in the parking lot of their corporate headquarters. They haven't said what they're going to do with it. They rolled it out for Quentin Tarantino's last movie about Hollywood. You can see it in that. They put it in a dirt lot in Tustin, California to film that. Pioneer Chicken, you can still see those buildings and what they look like. They're very square. And then the Boomerang Denny's that are still around. And the A-frames. We've got Der Wiener Schnitzel, and that's what I would think of in that drive-through. House of Pancakes, they did a lot of those that had that blue roof. And Baskin-Robbins didn't do as many as the other companies. And Pup and Taco was an A-frame with a square on the bottom. If you look at that, the sign that says Pup and Fries, because that location was New Mexico, that a family owned 3. When they sold them all over to Taco Bell, that family did not want to sell. So they kept theirs as Pup and Fries for about 5-8 years after. And that is the end of our presentation. And made in California. You can get it over at the bookstore. And that is our next book coming out, Fall 22. Volume 2, I don't know if that's going to be the cover, but it's Volume 2 next year from the Legendary Restaurants.
That's great. The Brown Derby. Is that the Brown Derby? Where is that?
Yeah, that's Brown Derby, and that's the one that was on Wilshire. Okay, the little thing about that building is the building is still there, kind of. They took the hat, cut it in half, took the brim off, and shoved it in the corner of a strip mall. And it's a sushi restaurant. So it was really ruined. And I had a lady come up to me at one of my events and she says, I saved the Brown Derby. And I said, you did? What happened? And she said, oh, they were going to tear it down and we got it in our strip mall. And I said, oh, and I just kind of smiled, because saving a building, cutting it in half and getting rid of half of it is not saving it to me. So.
Wow. Yeah, that is true. That's kind of ruining it. That's making it worse, I think.
Yeah. So I just smiled at her. A building. Yeah. A lot of people don't that I've been tracking is the Tale of the Pup building, and that was an iconic building in LA. That'll be coming back in West Hollywood. It's got the 1933 group. It's called. Bobby Green has redone a bunch of iconic places. The hot place will be coming back in about spring of next year. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So first of all, quick question about the In-N-Out double drive-through. Was that on Winnetka? Off of Winnetka?
No, that one that was the oldest one left. I tried to get the oldest one. That was in Pasadena.
Okay, because I remember those double drive-ins.
Yeah,
those
were a lot of double drive-ins. Yeah, and it's still amazing when you see one of the double drive-ins and you like watch them working. There's only 5 people in the whole place, and they have it down. You know, it's like an orchestra. You see one of those humongous places like in Las Vegas, and you see that, and then you see the double drive, and you think, how in the world do they all work? They must have to, tell everybody that they have to be 5'2" and 100 pounds because so they can fit on that building. It's like,
and they're fast too. Like the In-N-Outs are just extremely fast.
Amazing. And I've talked to a few that work in like a double drive-in, and they don't build those anymore, but they're still around. And I said, have you ever worked at the big ones? Oh, no, I could never do that. And I think it's worse, but their menu's the same. The newest item they brought out was a few years ago that people think, well, there's no new item, but there is. And it was hot chocolate. And kids get it for free if it's raining that day. And I tell you that.
I did not know that. Oh, wow.
Secret menu in the book. I've got the whole list of them all because I didn't. In fact, there's even more to the secret menu. I did not realize that some people order a double which is 2 beef patties and 2 pieces of cheese. One cheese is melted on and one is right out of the fridge. I don't know why, but it's something. I think some people really want to be strange and get like really intricate with their menu items.
Gourmet in and out. I like it.
Yeah.
In your book, you mentioned Julia Child, which I thought was great because you saw her in a McDonald's. And
Yep.
the 2 places I've seen her, because she used, when she was alive, she lived in Santa Barbara. The 2 places I seen her was McDonald's and Pete's Coffee, which Pete's Coffee was where my first date with my wife was. But it's just so out of context to see a gourmand like Julia Child eating McDonald's French fries and Pete's Coffee. It just tickles me.
The other 2 places for Julia was, and I ate with her a couple times at La Superica over on Melpis.
Oh yeah.
And and then the other place, Russ Parsons from the LA Times talked about this, that she really liked the $1.62 hot dog at Costco.
Okay, I heard that. I read that somewhere too.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I was at a convention. In fact, last weekend I was at the convention that we were at back in probably about 10 years ago in Philadelphia, and the caterer didn't show up. And I was sitting there with Julia and a few other people, and the McDonald's was open. We were at the train station because that's where they were having the event at. And we went over and got a bunch of French fries because she loves them, and we were starving because we'd been sitting there for a couple hours not eating. So, yeah, at first, all these people that are into food or call themselves foodies, which is great, but I was like, should I write a book about fast food? Because you hear so much negative stuff, but technically all of us have eaten at many of these places, and we just don't admit it. So I finally admitted it when I came out with the book. And Anthony Bourdain, his favorite thing was In-N-Out Burger. He'd stop there on his way. I worked with him on the show The Taste for ABC. I was a casting assistant for that, and I didn't just read it. I saw him eat In-N-Out burgers. So
that's great. Proof. You saw the proof there.
Yeah, that's the same thing with Julia. It was proof. I did actually see these things. So, but yeah, my foreword, I kind of talk about coming out of the fast food drive-through of what I did. So yeah.
My brother David's out there. Hi, brother David, my older brother. He mentioned that Superica used to be an Orange Julius. That's pretty amazing stuff. So
yep, yeah. In fact, there's an Orange Julius building. Those buildings are really iconic. They're a zigzag. And the North Hollywood location just opened as a Ruby's small burger, Ruby's Diner, but it's only like 10 items, but it's part of the Ruby's chain. It's North Hollywood, but they redid it and kept the original because a lot of those buildings in Southern California are historical. So they've got a number of them that they've done something new to. So
interesting. It's funny that I remember Orange Julius had great chili dogs when I was a kid. I love those chili dogs. They're so good.
And what's strange about these places, you go Tommy's, and now I have Pink's. I also have Cupid's, which is another hot dog chain, a family, 3rd generation in the Valley. There's Tommy's, then you've got Derwiener Schnitzel. All of these places serve chili is their main thing that people talk about. Oh, the chili, just like you just said. And that's something we don't do at home. How many times have you done hot dogs or burgers and had chili on the side? Never.
Never.
I've never been to a barbecue where they've done hot dogs and had chili on the side. So
yeah, I would be remiss not mentioning Carney's too. I love Carney's.
Oh yeah, they've got the 2 locations. Is the one in the Valley still there? Because I've been to the one on Sunset many times. But
I think the Ventura Boulevard, maybe. Yeah. I think it is still there. In fact, the owner who looks like Michael Keaton.
Because I was on Ventura Boulevard yesterday, and I didn't even look because I was driving down the street and I was going the opposite direction. I should have looked over there, but yeah.
Interesting. You had mentioned Ruby's before, and there's actually a Ruby online. and she wanted to know, how did fast food places tie in with California's image and tie in with the car culture or were they tied in with the car culture when they started?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, like I talked about the drive-ins, and
Hmm.
Californians, we're in our cars more than any place, and we always have been. Yeah, we were the first to have drive-ins like that. Back east, they do diners where we don't have
Yeah.
the diners really, and so then and now I have Wiener Schnitzel, Jack in the Box, In and Out. All three of those claim that they started the microphone box outside the unit.
Ah,
And
yeah.
so I just kind of mentioned all three because they all three say they invented it, and I'm not good, and
Mhm.
nobody has the trademark, so I'm like, okay, forget it. And I don't want any of the companies to be mad.
That's
I
good.
I had when I was working on the book, I'd have clarifications that were crazy. There was one of those companies I mentioned that said that they had 350 locations, and I could not find them. And their website said it too. And I finally got it out of them that they've been lying all that time, that they don't have that many. But so I put the exact number that I found. Uh, I wanted each chapter to be uh, an enlarged part of their uh, business model. I want they could take that chapter and show people. It could be like their history and a few little things. I didn't go into detail. I did one thing I thought was funny, and I think I did put it in the book. Winchell's Donuts. Winchell's Donuts, their ad for Fresno, California. We are looking for a bevy of beauties to work for us. 30 years old, good looking, blonde. Now,
Whoa.
could you imagine an ad like that today? And I
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
whoa. And then after they opened up, their ad was, come see our bevy of beauties. And I put the ad in the book so you can see that. And
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yes, that's
yeah. I
great.
mean, and I just the legendary book that's up right now, the volume 2 I'm working on, in
Mhm.
the smokehouse in Burbank, and that'll be in it. And the smokehouse, I found one of their ads, and it was the same type of thing. Under 35, not overweight, nice waist, and tall, and blonde. And so they're 75 years this year, and I sent their publicist. I said, "Do you guys still run this ad?" She about died. She says, "I can't believe they used to do that in the 50s and 60s and 70s." But I forgot when I'm looking through all this history that the newspapers would have male or women, girls and boy, male and female
Mhm.
job. So
Ah,
yeah, they'll look under the guys. And who said that a guy couldn't do this or that? In fact, I asked my mom about that. I said, was the car hops, they were all girls? She says, no, there was one place in LA that was all male car hops, and that's all they had.
ah,
So she told me the name, but I forget what it was. But I thought, well, that's interesting. It's kind of like Hooters of the day.
uh-huh.
You've heard that people would say, well, why guys are trying out for Hooters now? They have, if they can wear those shorts, they get to work there. So, but anyway, yeah, it was just fascinating, the ads that these companies would put out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Thomas had a few questions, and then we'll break it up here. And this is Thomas wanted to know how much driving you did, and did you go to just all the places that existed that are in your book?
Hmm. I'm drinking my A&W root beer.
That
Um,
frosty root taste.
mhm. Yep, I don't have Pete's Coffee right now, so they sent me a huge box of stuff. I mean, these companies, I like when I'm writing about them, I normally, or I've gone to a restaurant that I've talked about. In fact, I'll answer that in a second, but I went to a restaurant, the Del Rey, it's called. It's a great restaurant
Uh-huh.
that will be in my next book. And the owners, I had my photography team there because
Yeah.
we spent all day doing pictures for the next book. And I thought, well, these guys have never had a nice steak dinner at a place like this. They're high school and college, I mean, college kids. And so I took them there, and the owner comped it, and I got really mad because I don't do that, and
Yeah.
because I'm gonna write dirt about you. But no, it's but Pete's. I asked for information, and then the next couple of weeks, she said, "I think you probably need to make sure you try all these different products." So okay, but we have Pete's close to us. But yeah, I drove a lot. I flew up to the Bay Area. I was working on this book thinking it was going to be all 100 locations, and I'd only do like one page. It'd be like quick, it's the same size. But then I was finding so much history that I wanted to keep going. And that's where the publisher said, let's do only till let's do half, like 50 to 60 locations. So Northern California has a lot more later on. But I went up to, for instance, like Mrs. Fields Cookies. She was, someplace up there offhand. And then Noah's Bagels, they're still around.
Oh, yeah.
Here and there.
Yeah.
But, and I love Noah sold his company years back, and so did Mrs. Fields. And if you remember, Mrs. Fields cookies were like very hot all the time. They were very fresh, and now they're kind of like this. You go to one.
Yeah.
And Debbie Fields isn't happy about that. They kind of ruined her product, and she's bitter. And because I've
understandable
talked to her about it. But then Noah, I talked to him. And I said, after I interviewed Debbie Fields, because I really thought I was doing that chapter also. It's ready for the next book if I do it. And so Noah said, I said, they really changed your recipe because it was a kosher product and now it's not. And are you upset? And he said, listen, when you buy a house, you can't tell them what color drapes to put up. So no, I took the check. I cashed it. Which I don't talk about dollar amount, but Noah got in the 68 million. But
wow.
So I really think Debbie Fields should just take the check and go for it, and not worry about it.
Yeah.
But Noah, Debbie Fields, Mrs. Fields, they use their name, which there's that too. So yeah. But I drive a lot. I couldn't tell you how much because I drive a lot all the time. And if I'm not flying a lot, because the last 2 years I haven't flown as much, but I normally go about 125,000 miles a year around the country.
So, that's a lot. Yeah. And Thomas also wanted to know, out of all the people you met in your travels, who did you find to be the most interesting or intriguing?
Food wise, I'm sure that's his question. Let's see. Oh boy. I really, Patty Swenson from Swenson's The Daughter, she was fascinating. We, in fact, we keep in contact pretty much a lot. She lives up in Napa. And I really like these families that started these companies because, like with the Swensons, she was very, very little when they started. And she remembers certain things. And she'd go with her dad, and he'd have his typewriter, and they'd go to the franchisees that he had sold to and to retype the recipe cards. So she remembers that typewriter in the back seat and the little index cards for him to clean up the cards that were the recipes. And after he had passed and her mother passed, she was she worked for, I think, Wells Fargo Bank, one of the banks up north. And there was a Swenson's not far, and she would go in there and eat once in a while because they had food there besides ice cream. And they had a video run of her father. And so she thought that was she felt like she was close to her dad. So I don't think any of these companies or the families that started them were thinking they were going to become these humongous conglomerates. And, nowadays, you go to a restaurant, let's just say Chili's, it's already a conglomerate before it started. That's what companies are doing now, Macaroni, stuff like that. They're already part of a big company. I would say one of the most fascinating people also is probably Pat Ingen, the CEO of See's Candy. After he gave me his business card, he said, contact me about the designation on that building. Well, I sent him all the information I knew, and he didn't have anyone in the office to do it. And I said, I've got time, I'll do it. And I have the contacts, so I'll get that plaque up before the end of the year, which I did. I think I got it up in April. And but he the very first, I call him Mr. Ingen, and he goes, no, it's Pat. And anybody that works with candy has to be nice, it's just. And he I think, let me see, do I have it right here? I had something. Oh boy, see, it was something on, okay, is this it? I think it is. Christmas. Nope, that's not it. Anyway, but oh well, yeah, see, they give you Christmas cards. But it was kind of like, I thanked him because he sent me about 10 pounds of candy, I'd say. It was a huge box. And it was after we had done the project, and he said, I said, thank you so much. I didn't expect this at all. And he said, you've made an important, something about making an important milestone in the See's Candy 100-year anniversary. And I'm part of the family. So I'm waiting for my tour of the factory because it's very hard to get in there.
I'm sure you'll get there.
So, COVID's
you'll get there. Yeah. So we're running a little low on time. I'm going to close with this thought. What you brought with your book, what I think was so wonderful, is it brings out not only memories, but the taste memories. And sometimes taste and smell are more accurate than what you see or read. And I just wanted to know what drove you to want to preserve these memories, not only with your book, but with, the See's Candy sign and everything. What drives you to want to preserve these memories? Well, I think, and I know, we go through the buildings like Pup and Taco, Noggles, Copper Penny. Noggles will be in the next book. All of them are gone. But you and I remember these places. But if you don't have a record of them some way, Love's Barbecue Pit, I remember that was the first place I went that had a finger bowl, and I didn't know what the lemon in the little water bowl was all about because I was eating ribs. And I thought, well, what's that for? It was where you learned your table manners, and you thought, oh, this is fancy. They're giving you a water bowl. So I really wanted, and I think we tear down so much. Mostly in California. If a building's more than 50 years old, it's gone. And we need to preserve these things, and we can repurpose them. We don't have to completely tear them down. In the legendary restaurant book, I have a restaurant, Scandia, that was on Sunset. And I have pictures of it right before they tore it down. I was out there. We tried to save it. It turned into a Marriott hotel of some sort, one of their chain hotels. But they could have taken that front that was a beautiful mid-century modern building with glass. They could have taken and used that, I felt, as the front desk area of the building. But they didn't. They thought it's easier, let's just tear the whole thing down. So at least I can save some things, maybe some pictures, some ideas, some things. All these places were somebody's dream to open up and closed. But I hope I can preserve, at least in memories and, like you said, smell and taste and things like that. So, well, I think you've done that, George, and I wanted to thank you for coming out and talking with us. It was a really wonderful evening. Well, thank you so much, and everybody get the book. Yes, please buy. Secret menu of In-N-Out. Please get Made in California, the California-born burger joints, diners, fast food, and restaurants that changed America. It's a wonderful book. You won't regret it. Go back and relive your childhood. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening. Good night.